evening to everybody, and welcome to this next in our Music Revival online live stream series. A little improvisation that seemed to me to sound more like an ending than a beginning, but I'm here, and thank you very much for joining us. We hope you can stay with us for the next hour or so, when I have some beautiful music, very lovely selection of quite popular melodies, many of you I'm sure you'll know, but all of a French flavor, a French touch, a French flair for this evening's program. And first of all, there are two things, so apologies about, we had a little mishap in the stream on Wednesday night. We had a rather uncertain internet connection which took us by surprise, and normally when we have that and there are errors in the stream, I've always said that I will upload an error-free, perfect recorded version later that evening or the next morning. And unfortunately, at the same time, our computer hard drive, which is enormous, which has been recording every single stream for the last couple of months, decided it was full. And so it didn't record the stream. So unfortunately, we don't have a perfect version of that. It was a very nice program. I know many people enjoyed listening to what they could hear, and we're hoping to hear the full version. But who knows, maybe we'll even just try that program again and see what we can do. But we sorted the hard drive issue out, so that's now back to square one. And we're very much hoping that our perfect streaming is back on track. And of course, Lucy's already here to check on, to make sure that to give us good luck and good wishes for this evening's stream. Then the other thing, I did send out an email, and if you'd like to know more about this, you can also see it at my website, musicrevival.co.za, on the Don't Stop the Music page. A number of people have responded about the issue of not being able to watch our streams, especially on YouTube, if you're watching on a smart TV or watching on a computer, and there seems to be sometimes an issue with the speed of the download. I mentioned this once before, but at the end of the stream, which is not much help. So if you're watching now at the beginning of the stream, I'm going to tell you, if you're struggling with this, if you're on YouTube, if you click, there's a little cog on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, and that can give you the viewing size of the image, which you can select yourself. We send out this live stream series at the highest resolution possible of 1080p, which means there are 1080 pixels across the screen from left to right in every single image, and the images go at 50 images per second. So it's a very high demand image live stream that's going out. It means you can watch it on a big screen TV and get the same resolution as from DSTV or anything like that. However, if your internet speed or your internet connection is not so great, or you're wanting to conserve your data, you can go to that cog and then choose a much lower speed or image resolution, so that you can then save data. Maybe you want to reduce it to the lowest if you only want to listen, and your image size is not so important to you. It's just a way of allowing more people to see the images and to see what is going on. I realize that if it is at the highest, very dense resolution, it doesn't suit everyone, but you can change it yourself to your own needs. So I'm going to march straight on to selection of music. It's all French music tonight, and I'm playing beautiful music by Sarty, Faure, Poulenc, Debussy and Ravel. I'm going to start off with some beautiful melodies by Eric Sarty, a very unusual composer, but very innovative. Sarty's music was really always about the ideas and the concepts behind him. He was a very intellectual and a very clever man, but some people might say eccentric. One of the little stories that I read about him, which I think was very interesting, is that he always wore the same suit, and people always wondered how he managed to always be dressed around Paris in the same brown suit for many, many, many years. He was quite reclusive apparently, and when people gained access to his apartment after his death, they found a cupboard full of brown suits, all exactly the same color, and explained why he always was dressed in the same way. But many of his pieces had fanciful titles. He always came up with interesting ideas. He was kind of the beginning of the avant-garde, you might say, really creating new ideas around music, about what music really was and how it worked. And so the three pieces I'm going to play, very well known piece called the Gymnopidi, which refers to a fanciful name he made up that combines two words, gymno, games, and pidi, of children, the children's games, you might say. He said, however, that this piece referred to an air of purity, of ancient innocence, from a faraway place. It was just a fictitious title, and it's a very, very austere, very lovely atmosphere in this piece of music. The second one, another fanciful title called the Nwasian. I'm going to play the first of these pieces. I think there's 6 of them in total. And then the third, very easygoing cafe waltz. He wrote this as a song for voice and piano. The words, Je te veux, I desire you, I want you, a rather forward, saucy, you might say, kind of sentiment to be sung in a cafe. And he was later asked, or he decided to rewrite the piece and add a little bit extra as a piano solo. So these are 3 compositions by Eric Sarty: the Gymnopidi number 1, Nwasian number 1, and Je te veux. 3 pieces of music there by the French composer Eric Sarty in our all-French program this evening. That was to start off this program on Saturday, the 5th of March. And it's always just so exciting. So the French music that I'm playing, the keyboard music that I'm playing, obviously focusing on principally the keyboard music of the late 19th century and early 20th century French composers, which is a real flowering, I mean, the most unbelievable body of music composed during this time. And of course, there was another really great and substantial repertoire of keyboard music from French composers in the 18th century, people like Ravel, Couperin, and Jacques Dufly, who I've played a little bit of. But it's this late 19th century, the sort of very evocative sound. There's something about the great flair in this music which is so enticing, melodic, and beautiful. I'm going to carry on with 2 pieces by Gabriel Faure. First of all, his Romance, A Romance Without Words, I suppose somewhat inspired by Mendelssohn's Songs Without Words. This is such a very delicate, beautiful piece of music. And then a great favorite, which I've been asked for, and a piece of music I've been looking at for a while, and it took me a while to actually find a playable version by Faure, and this is his beautiful Pavane. Now, Faure composed this as a piece quite early in his career. Apparently, he started writing it as a piano piece, but it's really most well known in its orchestral version. And in fact, even the orchestral version, which is very beautifully orchestrated, has its beautiful sounds, can be played or can be performed with an additional choir part. He had envisaged quite an extravagant scene for this, even the possibility of adding dancers on stage in collaboration with the music. The choir part sang poetry by the words from the poet Paul Verlaine. And it's usually not performed with choir, because to have a whole choir for just this piece of music, it's not really necessary. But it does, if you can see it on YouTube, it does add a very evocative and a very unique sense to it. It's a beautiful melody. It's so well written. It's so familiar. I hope you're going to enjoy this. This is actually Faure's original version that he wrote to accompany the orchestral choir version. In other words, instead of the choir rehearsing with an orchestra, they would have been trained and rehearsed with a piano part just for rehearsal purposes. And I've got a feeling this is really the best and the closest we get to Faure playing the piece himself, including a recording that you can hear of a piano roll for the composer playing this, I think, pretty much in the same version. The Pavane itself is inspired by an early 18th century Spanish court dance of great austerity. It's a very steady pace with this very beautiful floating melody. So first of all, the Romance Without Words, number 3. Isn't that just ravishing, beautifully ravishing music? The Faure's Pavane piece in F sharp minor, a very unusual key for a composer to choose. And certainly that piece would have been a great influence, I'm sure, on Ravel, who eventually studied with Faure at the Paris Conservatoire. Ravel later writing his Pavane for the Dead Infanta. Before that, I played the Romance Now Without Words, number 3 by Faure. I'm going to move on to 3 compositions now by another French composer, of course, this time Francis Poulenc. And I'm going to start off with a beautiful song, Le Chamen de l'amour, The Pathways of Love. This is a song, again, for words, voice and piano. I have played this with a number of singers, and I've realized, in fact, it's such a beautiful song. There's such a wonderful melody. There's something so quintessentially French. Even when I was reading about this today, a commentator had said, is there any more French sounding music than this? It's so typically French. It's like the epitome of what people think French music is about. Wonderful song, and I'm playing a version, my own arrangement, you might say, combining the melody and the piano part together. After that, another nocturne, one of 8 nocturnes that Poulenc wrote, at least. And what's very interesting is that this last nocturne, which I'm playing, number 8, actually includes a melody from the first in the cycle. So if you play the whole cycle of 8 pieces, there's a reference point, there's a melody which returns in a very nostalgic way. It's a short piece, but a very nostalgic way, and beautiful harmonies and sounds and chords that Poulenc uses in this last nocturne. And then to the last of the 3 pieces, a series of improvisations that he wrote. I think there were 10 of them. And this is an improvisation inspired by the singing of Edith Piaf, great French artist, song artist of the time. Apparently, Poulenc, the composer, and Piaf never actually met, but he was probably, and I'm sure, very inspired by her music and wrote this improvisation, which has this very sentimental and beautiful atmosphere, almost like a cafe waltz in itself. three compositions there by Francis Poulenc. I started off with the song Le Chemin de l'Amour, then a nocturne number 8, and ended off with that beautiful improvisation homage à Edith Piaf. Poulenc, really beautiful chords, beautiful sentiment, beautiful music, so typically French. During that last few moments of that piece, I heard a rather peculiar noise coming from the other side of the studio. It sounded like a water. Can you see anything? Excuse me for a minute. I'm just going to have a look, Lucy. I'm going to peer over. It might be a candle or... How completely odd. I don't know what that was. Well, anyway, it can wait. It's not like anything is going to burst into flames, I don't think, at any point. So I'm talking, by the way, to my friend Kevin. Kevin Liddell is here once again. Thank you, Kevin. Standing in for Barry once again, who couldn't be with us this evening. So lovely to have you, Kevin. Thanks for that. Keep an eye, please, on that corner if you see smoke or anything emanating from that side of the studio. I don't know what that was. I think a candle just finally gave way. Yes, Lucy, I can hear you, but you can't come up now until later on. So on with the music. I'm going to move on to two short compositions by Claude Debussy. First of all, his beautiful prelude from Book 1. He wrote two of these books of preludes, 12 in each. I think 12 preludes in Book 1, 12 in Book 2. And this is the girl with the flax and hair. Beautiful atmosphere in each of these pieces of music. Debussy creates a unique color, a unique style, whether it's a evocation of a Spanish rhythm or of some depiction of mists or sails or the waving of grass or fireworks even, or a particular scene. And in this particular one, the girl with the flaxen hair, he conjures up this very Celtic, beautiful landscape. I always think that it relates to the wonderful scenery that's somehow edged in my memory of the Cadbury's advert, made with a glass and a half of milk. Beautiful scene of the young fair-haired maiden wandering through the fields with this pail of milk and the mists and this very evocative, innocent scene. And I'm sure that is really the same atmosphere that Debussy tries to capture in this music. The second piece, by a little bit of a contrast, a cafe waltz, something a bit smoky and sultry, you might say, Le Plus Galant. In this tradition, like you heard in Sarty and Poulenc later on as well, writing these beautiful waltz songs, Debussy was not to be outdone and wrote rather tongue-in-cheek the title Le Plus Galant, meaning the slowest possible or the most slow. I think trying to catch up or trying to have his mark in his later years, make his contribution to this cafe waltz genre, saying I'm going to write the slowest, the most sultry, bawdy piece of music I can possibly do that's going to outdo all of you. And so this is a rather charming but I think very beautiful piece. But first of all, the innocence of the girl with the flaxen hair. Rather over the top but fascinating music. Le Plus Galant, this cafe waltz which Debussy set out to really create something extraordinary. Before that, the beautiful girl with the flax and hair. Well, we're going to have a little appearance because someone is very keen. So a little appearance from another girl with sort of flax and hair. Sorry, Lucy, you're not very comfortable. This little Lucy on her Saturday night live stream appearance. Yes, little Lucy's feeling a little bit insecure. You're just wanting a little hug and a little love and a little scratch, aren't you, Lucy? Lucy, dare one ask the question, what did you do today? Nothing, just nothing. And so it should be. I think, Lucy, that's what we all would really like. We would all just like to do nothing. Yes, and lucky you. And I'm pleased that you are. Well done, Lucy. Lucy's just been lying around today. It's been a rather cool grey day. So wonderful, wonderful, Luce. Well done to you. So the last two pieces on this evening's program. See, we're running out of time. I'm going to end with two compositions by Maurice Ravel, two short pieces. The second of which is the first movement from his beautiful sonatine. As I've said before, when I played it, Ravel entered this or created this as an entry for a competition. There was a local newspaper in Paris that asked anyone, composers or amateurs, anyone at all could write a short first movement of sonata in a required number of bars. I think it was 35 bars, which was a particularly short piece of music. And Ravel writes a masterpiece. Not only he then went on to add the second and third movements too, but an absolutely incredible masterpiece in this beautiful, highly constructed, highly tightly condensed sonata structure. All the correct elements are there, the shapes, the forms, the flow in the middle, the return, the final coda, final ending, but was disqualified because his entry was half a bar or 1 bar too long. So in fact, I'm sure he would have taken the prize by far, being the most celebrated composer of the day, but he didn't. And we are very thankful because it's a great little piece of music. I'm only going to play the first movement of that sonatine. It's very ethereal. There's a lightness and a clockwork elegance like all of Ravel's music, but it's just very, it's so dense. It's so perfectly crafted. Each little note has its own place. And then before that, I'm going to take a bit of a risk here, it's a bit of a chance. I'm going to play a piece of music which is not intended for piano. It's Ravel wrote this Habanera, so this beautiful piece with the, like you heard in Chabrien. Or in Bizet's Chamen. That was from this Cuban Havanese, this very gentle rhythm that was popular. And Ravel writes a piece of music that is seen as an etude, a piece of music that is designed actually for a singer to sing a long line without words, an etude in breath control and in vocal phrasing. And so it's a very popular piece because any instrument can play it. It could be played very successfully on the violin, on the cello, on the flute. It's one of these pieces that you actually hear in so many different combinations because any instrument can really pick it up and capture the atmosphere. But what I find interesting when I looked at this is that I have a feeling that Ravel conceived the piece at the piano because the chords and things fit together quite well if you try and put the voice and the piano together in one place, which is what I'm going to try and do for the first time. So anything could go wrong here, but this is a beautiful atmosphere. It's very delicate, very atmospheric. It's not quite here, it's here, but not quite here. The way that Ravel's music works sometimes. And then ending off with the first movement of the sonatine. Ending off this evening's in concert with the selection of French flair and French music from the late 19th century, early 20th century. I played there my own arrangement of Ravel's Habanera, the vocalise, and then the first movement, possibly also in my own arrangement in part, sorry about that, of the first movement of the Sonatina, also by Maurice Ravel. That does bring us to the end of this evening's session. I hope you've enjoyed this beautiful selection, really such delicate music, some of my favorite music, and such a wonderful repertoire. I'm always very, very excited and very happy to be working on this French music, especially Ravel, Debussy, etc. And I hope you've enjoyed it too. I hope you can join us for our next session on Wednesday night, and as well as for the coming sessions in the next weeks. Thank you, Kevin, for the technical support. I hope everything has gone off smoothly this evening with a good stream, and I'm sure the stream is recording tonight if all is going well. Let's just see if we can get Lucy to make. Lucy, would you like to come and say hello? You're making a very, you're very interested in licking your paw. And Lucy's, how are you feeling today? Oh, you're much happier. Yes, the air conditioning's on and it's not too hot. You can feel there's a slight change in seasons. Maybe the air is just become a little bit cooler and not quite as humid because you've got a big fur coat and you can't take it off. Which of us has a big fur coat that we can't take off, Luce? It's me. It's you. Yeah, I know you do. Big furry coat, little sweet Lucy. Everyone slow loves Lucy. Thank you for all the messages that have come through for Lucy and for all the other support. Thank you for everyone who's donating to keep these streams possible, to help me in these very tricky times. I've written an extensive amount about why I can't have concerts in certain places and where I can have concerts, about the live streams and about who's supporting and who's not. On my website, you'll find that at the Don't Stop the Music. That's our hashtag, Don't Stop the Music, because we keep going. We're coming up for almost 2 years now. It's going to be the live stream number 208, I think it is, at the end of March, which is going to be our 2-year mark. So we look forward to keep going in these very tricky times. Just when we thought it was going to get a little bit easier, it seems to have become a bit more complicated, even on our live stream session. So here we go. I'm going to end off tonight with an improvisation. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining us. Thank you again to Kevin, and look forward to seeing you next week. Keep well, look after yourselves, and stay well.